Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Maria, Mater Studiorum, ora pro nobis. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Okay, so let's have at it. We're doing Vatican II once again, Church in the Modern World. We read just the beginning of the preface. Let's go ahead and take a look at, so we were looking at page 903. It starts then talking about all the different problems that there are in the world. Let's take a look at paragraph number 10. This is key because what it's going to do is show us openings for evangelization. Page 910, paragraph 10. Ms. Schulte. Thank you so much.
Man's deeper questionings. The dichotomy affecting the modern world is, in fact, a symptom of the deeper dichotomy that is in man himself. He is the meeting point of many conflicting forces. In his condition as a created being, he is subject to 1,000 shortcomings, but feels untrammeled.
Untrammeled, it means to be trammeled down is like tramped down.
Okay. He's subject to 1,000 shortcomings, but feels untrammeled in his inclinations and destined for a higher form of life. Torn by a welter of anxieties, he is compelled to choose between them and repudiate some among them. Worse still, feeble and sinful as he is, he often does the very thing he hates and does not do what he wants. And so he feels himself divided, and the result is a host of discords in social life.
Okay, stop for a second. You see what it's saying? What is it saying?
It's saying that he's like torn between, and he always does what he doesn't want to do.
Excellent. And why is that important for society?
Because for communication's sake?
Yep, very good. But also the point is trying to say is that our modern world, how are we going to solve the world? The church is saying it's actually an extension of what's going on in the human heart. So our cultural rippings are actually coming from the fact that our individual people aren't at peace. It's an interesting insight. Okay. Many, it is true,
fail to see the dramatic nature of this state of affairs in all its clarity, for their vision is in fact blurred by materialism, or they are prevented from even thinking about it by the wretchedness of their plight. Others delude themselves that they have found peace in a worldview now fashionable. There are still others whose hopes are set on a genuine and total emancipation of mankind through human effort alone, and look forward to some future earthly paradise where all the desires of their hearts will be fulfilled. Nor is it unusual to find people who, having lost faith in life, extol the kind of foolhardiness which would empty life of all significance in itself and invest it with a meaning of their own devising. Nonetheless, in the face of modern developments, there is a growing body of men who are asking the most fundamental of all questions, or are glimpsing them with a keener insight.
Okay, do you see how it just turned? Turned from what happened in that paragraph there? They started by describing what?
The inner turmoil.
Good. And then it just turned to start to say what?
Some people are still searching, looking for the fundamental questions.
Awesome. So this is where we're going to be able to meet them. So when you do your evangelizing, the church is saying, hit these points, because people are still looking in the world for these answers. Go ahead.
What is man? What is the meaning of suffering, evil, death, which have not been eliminated by all this progress? What is the purpose of these achievements purchased at so high a price? What can man contribute to society? What can he expect from it? What happens after this earthly life is ended?
Okay, let's look at each one of those. Well, so what is man? That's, a little bit harder. What's it all about, I guess? Let's paraphrase these questions. Tell me in other words what these questions, where you hear these questions.
What does it mean to exist?
Mm-hmm. But do you hear that question amongst your friends?
Yeah, well, I think that
what
it's...
is life?
Well, what is man, and kind of like, and now you see society where like there's no distinction between man and like anything else. Like you
Man
can't
and
control your
animal.
passions. You can't. So it's like defining that man is different, and I mean that's the way I see it. Society.
It's cool. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. How about the next one?
What is the meaning of suffering, evil, death, which have not been eliminated by all this progress?
Is that still a question today?
Yeah,
I
always.
think big question, yeah.
Where have you heard that in your life?
Atheists.
We
All
just
over.
talked about it in class like
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, with Brother Marishon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here at SJI.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, like, if your God is so big, then why
Yeah,
does
why do bad things happen if he's merciful? And
Yeah. Yeah. Was it, in there it's saying, which has not been eliminated by all this progress. Is that talking about the progress of the church that Christ established?
No, I think it's by all this progress in the world.
Oh, okay.
So we have medicine, and we have cars, and we have radios.
Still there's evil and suffering and death. And,
Now this is kind of cool. That's like the negative side. And then this next question. What's the purpose of success? Isn't that cool? So there's another way to approach our world. So when you're in front of someone successful and you're like, yes, but why is there suffering? And they're like, I don't have any suffering. I'm doing great, Remember I met with this lady one time, lived in Beverly Hills, and she told me, I don't need God. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I have 5 cars. I don't need God. What's religion going to add to my life?
I didn't need 5 cars.
Right? That's, so go ahead. Build on that. How would you approach that person?
Why not get a 6th?
yeah, like where does it end? Where does your hunger end? If you already have 5.
Yeah, I think that you would have to almost challenge them, like to think like, what are they getting? You have to get them to like think about.
Or ask them if they're satisfied. I don't know. If that were me, if you knew you could have anything whenever you wanted it, to me that's totally empty.
If you could
It's like, what are you striving for?
turn that like so that they actually think like, okay, why do I want 5 cars? Like,
Yeah, like above it says their clarity for their vision is blurred by materialism. That's just like a perfect example. Like you just can't see past that actual object, the actual material.
Excellent. All right, so then the other one is kind of like saying, so why are you successful? What are you going to do with it? What's the purpose to it? So yeah, you have all of that, but is the purpose of your life just to enjoy it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there not something higher than enjoyment of life?
I think that's like the question that brought me here. Like, what can I contribute to society? Like I'm not doing anything right now. So what can I do? What should I do?
It's very interesting because one of the ways that you help people to fund something, is to say, what kind of spiritual legacy are you going to lead? So you have the success, but when you go, what's going to be behind you?
Yeah.
That's kind of where that question comes. That's why people want to name things like buildings and benches. So when you offer them that, they feel like, okay, like my name is on something. There's something I've done, a mark that's going to stay behind me.
Yeah.
That's why like universities all have different halls named after people. Because what they're looking for is big donations in order to build that building. And they say to someone, if you give me $3 million, we'll put your name on there. It'll be the Father Nathan building. Or you can, and then you're like, okay, so that was, even if I'm gone, students will be learning in my building.
You have $3 million?
All right, next one. What can man contribute to society? There's your question, Vince. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think that like even goes like deeper, like even if you are working and you're making a contribution, like what is the meaning and what you're doing from that.
Yeah, because I mean, like, what's important here is that, like, wherever apostolate you're going to be in, whatever you're going to do for the church, Vatican II is like, there is a need there that you can tap into. Because people are like, how do I connect? They don't want to hear what I have to say. You have to rephrase it. You have to repackage it. You can't just go at people and be like, don't you know Jesus will make you happy? You'll get the answer, I don't need him. I got 5 cars. And then you're shot down. Vatican II is like fundamentally these questions are in there, so you have to learn how to, whatever apostolate you are to make it effective, they need to be addressing these questions. That's kind of a cool way to think about it. And then,
What can he expect from it?
I guess that means society.
What happens after this earthly life is ended?
Let's push on. Give him up. Vince?
The Church believes that Christ, who died and was raised for the sake of all, can show man the way and strengthen him through the Spirit in order to be worthy of his destiny. Nor is there any other name under heaven given among men by which they can be saved.
Okay, so there, it's what's being affirmed.
That the way to answer these things is through Christ.
Okay. So that's kind of cool, because like we're talking about, people are ripped up, it's bad society. It's like, what about, aren't we Christians?
Yeah.
So it's like, bam, the church believes Christ is the answer. But, go ahead.
The Church likewise believes that the key, the center, and the purpose of the whole of man's history is to be found in its Lord and Master. She also maintains that beneath all that changes, there is much that is unchanging, much that has its ultimate foundation in Christ, who is the same yesterday and today and forever. And that is why the Council, relying on the inspiration of Christ, the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, proposes to speak to all men in order to unfold the mystery that is man and cooperate in tackling the main problems facing the world today.
Okay, so it's describing, all right, we have this mystery of the human heart, and that's billowing out into the world around us. Church believes Christ is the answer, and so she proposes to speak to all men and to cooperate in facing these problems. Okay, so there's, you got evangelization. All right, so then, if we take a look, chapter 1, Dignity of the Human Person, it's going to be talking all about what man kind of is. And then it's going to go into the society at large, and it's going to be talking, what it's doing is giving you foundations for evangelization. I want to focus this in, for this point, on what it says about atheists. Let's take a look at paragraph 19. Rage Against the Machine. Could you read for us? We're going to read these 3 sections, 19, 20, and 21. The reason why is because this, in all of our readings about atheism, this is like the spot we're going to talk about it. And so it's cool for you just to kind of see, man, the church actually thought this through, and this is back in the 60s. So it's when you hear about atheists and atheism, you can kind of have some response. Go ahead.
Kinds of atheism and its causes. The dignity of man rests above all on the fact that he is called to communion with God. The invitation to converse with God is addressed to man as soon as he comes into being. For if man exists as it is because God has created him through love, and through love continues to hold him in existence. He cannot live fully according to truth unless he freely acknowledges that love and entrusts himself to his Creator.
He cannot live fully according to the truth unless, okay, again.
Many, however, of our contemporaries either do not at all perceive or else explicitly reject this intimate and vital bond of man to God. Atheism must therefore be regarded as one of the most serious problems of our time, and one that deserves more thorough treatment.
Okay, according to the text, why is atheist one of the most serious problems of our time?
Because it's denying God that love. And it's denying ourselves that love that He shows us, right?
And can't live fully according to truth.
So this means that when you meet an atheist, are you meeting someone who, according to the mind of the church, is living a healthy life?
No.
So reaching out to an atheist, is it something that helps them or something that hurts them?
Helps them.
Why?
Because you're trying to bring them to truth.
And why does that help them?
Bring them to the fullness of-
Fullness of truth and through a relationship with God.
So when you meet an atheist, you're meeting almost like someone who is an orphan. And you're trying to bring them back into the Father's house.
It's like a vital bond.
Very good. We have to be convinced of that. And one of the ways you're convinced of it is when people talk about religion, they'll talk about it as something negative. You know, religion. You're like, wait a second, my religion isn't a bunch of rules. My religion is a relationship with God. So why is it bad for me to propose to you that you have a friendship with the Most High God? Yeah. So once they talk about that outside of a relationship, it just becomes another social structure that's confining, etc. And that's how they can reject it. But when you're like, I'm talking about you knowing and loving an infinitely good being. Well, how in the world could that be a threat to anybody? See what I mean? It kind of stands it on its head. It's based on that knowledge, understanding of relationship.
What about they're just like, that's just going to be a waste of my time. That's the negative.
Well, at least they can say that.
Yeah.
But we are not ashamed to propose it.
Okay.
So like, would I be ashamed to wear my habit in downtown Denver? Aren't I imposing? Aren't I looking weird? What I'm proposing is that God loves this world, and He has sent me to show you that love. There's nothing to be ashamed of. That's the positive kind of confidence that's behind us. But it's eroded when they say you're just there to bring people into the church.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bree.
What about evangelizing an atheist who has been, there's a very negative aspect or view on religion because of experiences with quote-unquote Christians that have treated them wrong?
How would you approach that?
Just being a friend to them, but at some point there has to be a deeper or more of verbally evangelizing them, actually talking about Christ rather than just being their friend and hearing their woes and whatever. But I don't know, it's a tedious thing to do.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we were kind of talking about it earlier today. Building that connection, building that root first. And if that's if the way to connect with them is not talking about God, then I think you should do it. And then, like you said, there has to be a certain point though where it blossoms or dies, right?
Let's push on.
The word atheism is used to signify things that differ considerably from one another. Some people expressly deny the existence of God. Others maintain that man cannot make any assertion whatsoever about him. Still others admit only such methods of investigation as would make it seem quite meaningless to ask questions about God. Many trespassing beyond the boundaries of the positive sciences either contend that everything can be explained by the reasoning process used in such sciences, or, on the contrary, hold that there is no such thing as absolute truth. With others, it is their exaggerated idea of man that causes their faith to languish. They are more prone, it would seem, to affirm man than to deny God. Yet others have such a faulty notion of God that when they disown this product of the imagination, their denial has no reference to the God of the Gospels. There are also those who never inquire about God. Religion never seems to trouble or interest
It's
them
like
at
your
all.
friends, Vince.
Nor do they see why they should bother about it. Not infrequently, atheism is born from a violent protest against the evils in the world, or from the fact that certain human ideals are wrongfully invested with such an absolute character as to be taken for God.
That would be, it's very interesting. I like human ideals. So, yeah, my God is peace. My God is harmony.
Modern civilization itself, though not of its very nature, but because it is too engrossed in the concerns of this world, can often make it harder to approach God.
Okay, so in that paragraph, the value is the church is showing, look, we are aware. This is a broad thing. It's not just like, there's not one reason. Yeah, exactly.
Without doubt, those who willfully try to drive God from their hearts and to avoid all questions about religion, not following the biddings of their conscience, are not free from blame.
Oops, that's cool. So is atheism a sin? What does it say? When is atheism sinful?
Well, if you're willfully doing it. I mean, you really could just grow up in like
Not
an
having-
atmosphere where you really have no idea. I mean, it could be complete, just ignorance.
But there's also the possibility of someone who just willfully rejects.
Yeah, because I think at some point in life, I mean, you're going to start questioning. I guess it depends on your upbringing, but it seems like most atheists are going to start questioning like meaning and like trying to find a purpose.
What would you consider willfully rejecting? Because if their idea of God is not like God at all, and they reject it, and anything they hear of religion just because it has the name, I mean, they're rejecting not God, they're rejecting their idea of God. So
would they be guilty of sin?
I wouldn't think so.
Good job. Yep. That's why you can never know. You can never judge a person. Okay, keep going.
But believers themselves often share some responsibility for this situation. For atheism, taken as a whole, is not present in the mind of man from the start. Something in Latin.
Yeah, it is the same sentence. He's like, it's hard to translate. So
It springs from various causes, among which must be included a critical reaction against religions, and in some places against the Christian religion in particular. Believers can thus have more than a little to do with the rise of atheism.
whoa, stop. That's pretty cool. That's the church teaching. What do you think of that, Regina? That last sentence.
I mean, I have met Christians that, if I didn't know better, would make me want to be an atheist.
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're claiming to be something and not living it, and then someone else interprets it as what it actually is, like, you could definitely drive.
I'd say they're more of the reason for atheism than any other reason.
Mm-hmm.
And also a very, like an over moral religious view or something. Like people that,
They're not realistic.
yeah, that you couldn't even connect with because it's like, I'm this holy. And that is almost more of a turnoff than like people who are just saying that they're a Christian.
So where have you seen, what do Catholics, let's make it specific, in your world, where do we, the church in general, from bishops to priests to people to talk shows to EWTN, where is the church in America turning off your friends and making them turn away from religion? What do people do that's causing atheism in your experience?
I think that there's a lack of like a community aspect. As in, like, if you just walk into a Catholic church, it's not necessarily welcoming. Or if you go into another religion, they like are very much about bringing people in. So just like that aspect could be kind of a turn off. But I think because people don't take the time to understand like why the church teaches what it teaches, and people aren't actually living that out. Like if you go out and love someone, then maybe they can understand why there are teachings about like homosexuality and everything. But if you're just like, these are our rules, like nobody wants to just follow a list of rules. And I think that comes off a lot, as in like the Catholic Church has all of these rules, but nobody is actually like showing them why.
Isn't that amazing? Because that's a conservative Catholicism that isn't working, right? Because the reason we say all that is because we want people to know Jesus. So there's rules because we want to say there's truth. But when we do it in that way, you're saying that doesn't work. Has that attracting people in?
Just rules?
Yeah.
No. I'm saying like you have to actually be doing it. I mean, like Pope Francis isn't always very clear on what he says, but he does like a good job of like just loving people.
Yeah, living that out, living what he's preaching.
And I think that attracts some people because they kind of like see that it is about love and not just a list of rules.
So you're saying that if you were going to be guiding an apostolate that's reaching out to people, it's really important to
love them.
And in what way would it be important to manifest that love?
Like including them?
Yeah, I think it's just quality time.
Yeah, including them. I mean, like sacrificing for them, like
And meeting
giving your time, making them feel special,
meeting them where they're at, rather than like, well, this is what we do, so if you don't like it, then that's fine, like we'll still be nice to you, but like, there's like a clear line, rather than like including them in like, not necessarily lowering yourself, but I mean like meeting them where they're at.
Cool. All right. Let's push on. Believers can thus have more than a little to do with the rise of atheism.
to the extent that they are careless about their instruction in the faith, or present its teaching falsely, or even fail in their religious, moral, or social
Exactly
life,
what we said.
they must be said to conceal rather than to reveal the true nature of God and of religion. Yeah, because if you have people that are like, I'm Catholic, but I'm an atheist, and I see that you never attend church, you don't actually even know what church teachings are, then I'm like, well, why in the world should I do that? Because I'm doing the same thing, and I'm not pretending that I'm following a religion.
And a lot of it, I feel like, a lot of people view it as like uneducated, because you ask people questions and they like don't have an answer, like, oh well, rather than like actually seeking the reason in the teachings and like the why they're there, because it's just been tradition and habit and easy for them. They've never had to question it. It's just been the way they grew up, basically. I think that's a big turnoff for people who want to think, they want to, find the truth, but like I don't know. When you're just like, I don't understand it, therefore it's just like God's way. It's I don't know. Rather than like actually seeking it on a level of reason.
Plus, I think a lot of atheists are actually searching for a good. They're trying to, I mean, if you don't have like a belief in the afterlife, and you're searching for like the reason that you're here is because you're trying to make a better society, like you believe in a good. And so they're not going to be attracted to something that seems false.
Yeah.
Or where people aren't living it. Because they actually want a good.
Yep. Okay, Vince, systematic atheism.
Modern atheism often takes on a systematic form, also which, in addition to other causes, so insists on man's desire for autonomy, as to object to any dependence on God at all.
Okay, so it's kind of cool. Notice again, we reject God so as to save man. Reject God so as to save man. So, beer drinking is great. It's awesome. It tastes good. Friends are there. And then so if our religion comes and says, it has nothing to do with God, we're here to be only, God is this way, people are going to be like, you just denied something that's really good. Be like, you can't go to professional sport outings, we should be in church all the time. That will lead to atheism. Which is why it's kind of cool, like your approach, or Eagle Eye's approach with being outdoors, or Catholic young adult sports, or all these things that are trying to catch people. To catch them by affirming that, hey, life is good. Let's play basketball. Let's play rock and roll together. Let's eat pizza together. Let's have fun. And then, bam, the message. And there's two side by side. Yeah. I saw that. I just was at this family retreat, and they had the teen night, and I was hearing confessions. I was watching how he operated. And he started off with motions, singing with hand motions. The kids were all in it. They were loving it. And then he quieted it down, and then he nailed them with truth, and he finished with prayer. But he started with, these things are okay. I think one of the biggest blocks of evangelization is when you act like you condemn things that are good. People are like, stop. And that's because atheism takes on, because of many causes, it insists on man's autonomy. So it's either God or man. We're going to say it's man. We're going to say it's God and destroy our lives.
Yeah. Because we don't understand God.
Yeah.
Right? We understand man, so we're going to take the easy way.
Yep.
Take that. Those who profess this kind of atheism maintain that freedom consists in this, that man is an end to himself, and the soul maker with supreme control of his own history. They claim that this outlook cannot be reconciled with the assertion of a Lord who is author and the end of all things, or that at least it makes such an affirmation altogether unnecessary. The sense of power which modern technical progress begets in man may encourage this outlook.
All right, so look at that first line at the top there. Read that again. The soul maker. Top of page 920.
Soul maker. The soul maker with supreme control of his own history.
Stop. Just think about it. The soul maker, the one who does anything. I am. It's me. This is what we're talking about yesterday about freedom. There you have. I have supreme control of my story. It's freedom that I want, and you couldn't reconcile that with
a God that is the end of all things.
Because then you have
rules and
limitations.
Yeah.
And that's why that idea we went over yesterday about freedom beginning when you have the Lord. Since you have a Lord, you actually can do things. If you were the Lord, then you would never be free. Because anytime you try to do something, you would be defining yourself. Have you guys ever seen Citizen Kane? So many things I could do with you. Citizen Kane is a movie. Again, movie night. Next time you have one, if you want my recommendation, just text me. I'll text you back. It's unreal. It's 1938, George Orwell. And it's a story of this guy who reaches the heights of richness, wealth, popularity, fame But as he does it, he becomes more and more alone. And the scene, and that's very famous, is he lives in this place called Xanadu. Xanadu, Xanadu. And it's this like mythically like fabulous kind of castle. And it has this scene where you follow the camera down this hallway and turn and then up and then around the staircase, and it's kind of showing how big it is. You're finding a butler who's carrying a glass of water or something. And then he arrives at this chair, and there's this old man slouched over in the chair, and it's the owner who's made it that far. And that the whole movie is tracing his life of rising while he descends. And so
Wait
that...
till the end.
No, you don't. That's been so cool. I didn't think of that. Okay.
Among the various kinds of present-day atheism, that one should not go unnoticed, which looks for man's autonomy through his economic and social emancipation. It holds that religion, of its very nature, thwarts such emancipation by raising man's hopes in a future life, thus both deceiving him and discouraging him from working for a better form of life on earth. That is why those who hold such views, wherever they gain control of the state, violently attack religion. And in order to spread atheism, especially in the education of young people, make use of all the means by which the civil authority can bring pressure to bear on its subjects.
All right. Cool. Let's push on. Bree, 21.
The attitude of the church towards atheism. The church, as given over to the service of both God and man, cannot cease from reproving with sorrow, yet with the utmost firmness, as she has done in the past, those harmful teachings and ways of acting which are in conflict with reason and with common human experience, and which cast man down from the noble state to which he is born.
Very important. That's the condemnation of what?
False teachings.
No?
The church has...
What is it condemning there in very mild terms? Oh, you're right, Vince. But what is teachings of what?
And ways of act. Well, they're the ones that are in conflict with reason.
And what would those be?
in conflict with God.
Very good. This is why Vatican II gets criticized so much by traditionalists. That's the rejection of atheism. You didn't even know it. Paragraph 21.
So why does that get criticized?
Because they would this is not clear. It acts like atheism is like this halfway understandable thing. The church should say atheism is wrong and keep your kids from atheism.
But it is understandable.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Regina. And I think that watching the three of you all nod your head and be like, this is cool. This is the church getting it. Mm-hmm. Paragraph 21 starts, this is the church actually saying, we want to remind everybody we don't agree with it. But it does it very softly, doesn't it? You didn't even know it was like, you guys were like, what, atheism? But that's what it's saying. It reproves those harmful teaching and ways of acting which are in conflict with reason and common experience, i.e. religion. So if they conflict with what reason can tell me about God and what everybody believes about God. But this is like an example of how soft it was. You didn't even pick up on it. So, anyway.
She tries nevertheless to seek out the secret motives which lead the atheistic mind to deny God. Well knowing how important are the problems raised by atheism, and urged by her love for all men, she considers that these motives deserve an earnest and more thorough scrutiny. The Church holds that to acknowledge God is in no way to oppose the dignity of man, since such dignity is grounded and brought to perfection in God.
Okay, stop. That's an awesome sentence.
The Church.
Why is it okay to say that God exists and that you should give him a chance? Why?
What was that?
Why? According to that sentence.
Why what?
Why should I be okay with telling everyone in the world, give God a chance?
Because he stands for human dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. He's not going to hurt you. He's going to actually give you a fuller life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that message is missing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Man has in fact been placed in society by God, who created him as an intelligent and free being. But over and above this, he is called as a son to intimacy with God and to share in his happiness. She further teaches that hope in a life to come does not take away from the importance of the duties of this life on earth, but rather adds to it by giving new motives for fulfilling those duties. When, on the other hand, man is left without this divine support and without hope of eternal life, his dignity is deeply wounded, as may so often be seen today. The problems of life and death, of guilt, of suffering remain unsolved, so that men are not rarely cast into despair. Meanwhile, every man remains a question to himself, one that is dimly perceived and left unanswered. For there are times, especially in the major events of life, when no man can altogether escape from such self-questioning. God alone, who calls man to deeper thought and to more humble probing, can fully and with complete certainty supply an answer to this questioning.
Okay. Give me a summary there of those last two paragraphs that we read. And you can look at the text, but talk back to me, what does the church say about how do we answer atheism? How do we talk to it? Because there she's giving you a lot of avenues. You could try this approach, this approach, this approach. Let's try to enumerate them. Just read them back to me.
She further teaches that, man has in fact been placed in society by God, who created him as an intelligent and free being. But over and above this, he is called as a son to intimacy with God to share in his happiness.
Okay, so number one, that there's a call to share in what?
Happiness.
Not just happiness.
Intimacy with God, relation with God.
Yeah, cool. So now there's a positive thing with God. I mean, it's not with anybody. The very first response you can give your atheistic friend is that, hey, there's a positive thing here. Religion isn't just saying you shouldn't be sleeping with your girlfriend. Religion is saying, do you want to be friends with God? There was a French dude named Tim Guérin. And he's famous in the French church now. But he was like a gangster type of dude, just broken home, lived on the streets, really just a rough dude. And he was converted because a priest got in the car with him. Someone had him talk to a priest or whatever. And the priest got in the car and he said, take me for a ride. And so Tim talks about how he was driving crazy, and at the very end of driving, showing off how fast he could go and everything. Stopped the car, and the priest, he said, reached over and touched his heart with his hand and said, do you want to know the mercy of Jesus? He converted. Started crying and everything. Do you want to know the mercy of Jesus? They look positive. They talk about anything negative. Do you want to know God? Cool. Second, or more. Just give me more than there.
Well, they talk about dignity being wounded. So,
hope in a life to come does not take away from the importance of the duties of this life on earth, rather adds to it by giving new motives for fulfilling those duties.
Cool. Incites us to greater, that's kind of cool, a greater commitment. So it's kind of like laying down a gauntlet here. I mean, that's really important because there it's saying, if you're an atheist, you're going to be less committed to the oceans than we are. Look at that. I'm going to care more about the oceans than you because I care about the oceans because of God. I'm going to care more about, nuclear waste being dumped on third world countries than you. Now that's kind of cool. So it's if you really want to get passionate about something, say that you are passionate about it because of God. Now you have an infinite source. Again, it's a positive thing. Next. Another response to atheism. I wouldn't say it's a response. I would say this is more like an invitation to atheists. How do I invite atheists? Okay, give me another one.
On the other hand, man is left without this divine support and without hope of eternal life. His dignity deeply wounded, so as as many so often seen today, the problems of life, death.
Well, it talks about how they're deeply wounded and
Cast into despair.
so